A very good morning, children. Children, today we shall continue with grammar topics. Today we shall take up active and passive voice and direct and indirect speech. So keep your notebooks ready if you want to note down some things. This is the 7th video of your revision class. So are you ready then? Let's start. We start with direct and indirect speech. Let's see what the definition is like. When you talk about direct speech, what are they? They are the exact words of the speaker and they are usually put within inverted commas. Example, Ben said, I have a dental appointment this evening. So it's in inverted commas, right? You have a comma even here after said. So remember all this when you're talking about direct speech. Indirect is when we tell others what somebody said or thought. We often use indirect speech. And indirect speech is also called reported speech. For example, Ben said that he had a dental appointment that evening. Okay, so here you see there is no inverted commas, right? Now, how do we change direct speech to indirect speech? This is the few rules that you need to remember. Change the pronoun, back shift the tense, change the time and place of expression. Ben said, I have a dental appointment this evening. So how will you put it? Ben said that he had a dental appointment that evening. So pronoun I becomes he, verb from have becomes had, time expression this evening becomes that evening. Let's see some sentences to understand this better. Now you have a direct speech here. Sarah said, you can see how do you know it's a direct speech? It's inverted commas, right? Comma and open inverted commas. I drink black coffee every morning. So how you put in indirect? Sarah said that she drank black coffee every morning. Then next sentence, direct speech. Naveen said I am learning to play guitar. So in direct speech, Naveen said that he was learning to play guitar. My son is graduating next week, she said with great excitement. So in indirect speech, how you say? She said with great excitement that her son was graduating the next week, the following week. Okay. Then, next you have, I quit my job a week ago, he confessed to his wife. So in direct speech, how you'll write it? He confessed to his wife that he had quit his job a week before. Now, there are few words which will change when we are changing from direct to indirect. Like am and is will become was. Are becomes were. Have and had becomes had. Can, can't becomes could, couldn't. Will, won't become would, wouldn't. And we even have some change in place and time. Okay. If you say today, if you're writing indirect speech, what will it be? That day, the same day. Please remember this. Tomorrow becomes what? The next day, the following day. Yesterday, the day before, the previous day. Next week, month, year will become what? The following week, month, year. Last week, month, year, the previous week, month, year. Now, just will become then. Ago, before. Year will become there and this will become that. Now, change the following sentences to reported speech. What is reported speech? As you already know, it's indirect speech. So, let's do this together. You look a bit of a wrestler yourself, I said. So what will it be? I said that he looked a bit of a wrestler himself. Then, I want to work for you, I said. So what will be in indirect? I told him that I wanted to work for him. Sing that back. He ordered me. He ordered me to sing that back. He asked Susan, would you be able to take care of my pets while I'm away? So he asked Susan whether she would be able to take care of his pets while he was away. So this is what is all about direct and indirect. So let's move to our next topic, that is active voice and passive voice. Now active voice and passive voice, they refer to what? The form of a verb. So when we use active voice, the subject is the doer of the action. Now let us look at this example. Mother prepares the food. So preparing the food, mother. She's in the subject. So in this sentence, the form of a verb shows that the person denoted by the subject. Now who's denoted by the subject? The mother. She does something. So when the action is done by the subject, okay, this is the doer of the action. It's in the subject, so it is active voice. When we use the passive voice, the action is done to the subject. Okay, the ball, is kicked by the boy. Now, who is doing the action? The boy. But the boy is not in the subject. Okay, the action is done to the subject. So the ball is kicked by the boy. Okay, so in this sentence, the form of the verb shows that the action is done to the subject by the doer of the action. Alright, so the boy is doing the action, but it is done to the boy. So the one who's doing the action is not in the subject, it's in the predicate. So it's a passive voice. So what are the rules that you need to remember when you're talking about active and passive voice? First, when you read the sentence, children, identify the sentence, whether it is active voice or passive. Then ask who is doing the action. If the doer of the action is in the subject, then it's an active voice. And if the doer of the action is in the predicate, then it's a passive voice. Okay, this is a simple rule. And change accordingly without changing the meaning of the sentence. Now here are some verbs that you need to remember when you change from active to passive. Simple present tense, I write a poem. How will you be in passive? A poem is written by me. Then in present perfect, I have written a poem. Passive voice में how you say? A poem has been written by me. Present progressive, I am writing a poem. A poem is being written by me. Simple past, how you will say? I wrote a poem, right? Now in the passive, a poem was written by me. Then past perfect, I had written a poem. Then a poem had been written by me. What about past progressive? I was writing a poem. A poem was being written by me. Now what about future tense? I shall write a poem. This is an active voice. In passive, a poem shall be written by me. Future perfect, I shall have written a poem. A poem will have been written by me. And lastly, in future progressive tense, I shall be writing a poem. Shall be writing. Okay. So a poem will be written by me. So you need to remember this table, okay, because it's talking about the word phrases when you change from active to passive voice. Now when you change your voice, the voice from direct, okay, with direct and indirect objects. Now suppose you have the sentence. Now look at it carefully. The girl sent her mother a gift. Now who's doing the action? The girl. Obviously, if the girl is doing the action, she's in the subject. So it's an active voice. Fine. Now, which are the objects here? We have two objects, mother and gift. Now, mother is indirect object and gift is direct object. So, in cases like these, children, when you have two objects, you can write the answer in these two ways. The mother was sent a gift by the girl. That is one way. And a gift was sent to the mother by the girl. Either way, this is correct. Then let's see another sentence to understand this better. Tom gave me a pen. Tom is the subject. He's doing the action. And you have two objects here. You have the pen and you have me. Okay, me is indirect object and pen is direct object. So I was given a pen by Tom, or you can say a pen was given to me by Tom. Alright, so you're changing the doer of the action. You're putting him in the predicate and he's not, it's changed from the subject to the predicate. So that becomes a passive voice. Now when you have interrogative sentence, what are you going to do? Suppose you have to change from direct to indirect. So when you are asked to change the voice, okay, you're supposed to change from the active voice to the passive. Remember that the sentence with the change voice should also be a question. You have to recognize which is the subject in the sentence, whether the sentence in the active or passive voice. Now you have a question here. Where did they find this ring? Now they, who is doing the action? They. It's a subject. So it's in the subject. So when it's in the subject means what? It is active voice. So how will you put this now? You have to put it as a question only, children. Okay. So you'll say, where was this ring found by them? So it becomes a passive voice. So you've changed it from one interrogative sentence to another interrogative, but you change it from active to passive. Now, if you have imperative sentences, while changing the voice of an imperative sentence, we add let at the beginning of the passive voice construction. Now, do the work. Now, here you say, teacher, there is no subject. So, it is presumed that you do the work. Okay. So, you do the work. Now, here it is the active voice. Alright, because the one who's doing the action is in the subject. So, let the work be done. That will be passive voice. Then, close the gate. You close the gate. Okay. So, the action is, the one who's doing the action will be in the subject. So, it's an active voice. So, let the gate be closed. So, when you have imperative sentences, children, where there's a command or request, so always remember you have to put the word let in order to change it into passive voice. Then we have other examples of passive voices where you change from active to passive. Passive, it will focus on what, not on the one who's doing the action. It will focus on the happenings, okay, what has happened. So you will see here, we use the passive voice when we wish to focus on a happening, which is more important to us than who or what causes the happening, or when there is simply no need to mention the doer. So like, our cottage was damaged in last night's storm. So you're not saying who has damaged it, okay? Our cottage was damaged. So this is a passive voice. My car was stolen by the thief. Who's doing the action? Thief. But we're not talking about the thief in the subject. Here the subject is what? My car was stolen. So that is passive voice. Then we even use passive to avoid vague words as subject. We also prefer the passive when we wish to avoid using a vague word as subject. Someone, a person, etc. After my talk, I was asked to explain a point I had made. So here we didn't write anything about the subject, the one who's doing the action, okay? You just mention it as a passive voice. Then we use passive voice even for formal notices and announcements. This we have done earlier. Candidates are required to present themselves half an hour before the examination begins. Who has said this, we don't know. But we are saying that the announcement is made, okay? So, we talk about what is important is the notice and the announcement made. Passengers are requested to remain seated until the aircraft comes to a complete stop. We are not talking about the doer of the action here. So, these are all passive voice. Then when it comes to newspapers, reports, headlines, many people have been questioned in connection with the murder. Here we are not talking again who is doing the action. We are only talking about many people have been questioned, right? So that will be passive voice. And shots fired at UN mission. So we're talking about the shots fired. Are we talking about who fired the shot? No. So it is a passive voice. And when there is scientific writing, the mixture is placed in the beaker. Yes? We are not talking about who placed the mixture. We just say the mixture is placed in the beaker. So that is a passive voice. So go through all these sentences again. Revise the rules again, children. So this is all about what we did about direct and indirect speech and passive and active and passive voice. Do the sentences. Please do the assignment that is given to you. I hope you are revising your everyday tutorials. All the best, children, and God bless you.